We elected members at Kent County Council are proud of the progress we're making with our skilled officers towards net zero. And you heard the number, 73% of reduction in emissions that Roger said. And to dealing with the problems of climate change, we're proud that we're dealing with those. It's a collective job, but I am going to pick out one person whose leadership and enthusiasm has fired the zeal of people involved in Kent County Council. And that's our cabinet member for the environment, Susan Carey, and she's here to tell you about it and what's next. Susan.
I love that film and its message that we've started our journey, but we need to do a lot more and fast. Last year's conference was entirely online because that was the only way we could meet. This year, we're able to meet in person again, and it's good to see so many of you here. But we're also joined by many more watching online. The pandemic forced so many of us to work from home, and it was astonishing just how well people adapted to this. There will be few workplaces that don't look to keep some degree of flexible working in future. As our own conference today shows, it needn't be either or, it can be both and. At Kent County Council, we have two linked goals. We've committed to reduce carbon emissions from our own estate and services by 2030, and to do so for Kenton Medway as a whole by 2050. We've been measuring our carbon emissions and setting ourselves targets to successfully reduce these since 2005. One of our biggest projects was a £40 million investment to convert all of KCC's 124,000 streetlights to LED. We started this project in 2015 when it was the biggest project of its kind in Europe. It was a bold move and it paid off. LED lights use significantly less energy, last longer, and are more reliable. This meant our carbon emissions fell and our costs of running and maintaining the streetlights dropped dramatically. Just as importantly, our residents had a more reliable service and better directed lights that could be dimmed or made brighter remotely. What's more, the light was better directed, so it lit the ground, not the skies, which reduced light pollution. This project's important as it illustrates two of the aims we have for our environment work. The switch over to LED lights brought multiple benefits and would be worth doing under any circumstances. It was a no regrets project. This is typical of the sort of work we're engaged in. We're reducing carbon emissions and cost. It's not either or, it's both and. Let me give another example of a project with multiple benefits. Earlier this year, KCC completed an innovative programme of work in George Park in Margate to reduce the risk of flooding and heat stress. Surface water from the road was diverted from the combined sewer system into new ponds and swales in the park. The stored water can slowly filter through the planting and back into the ground, increasing the capacity of the sewer and supporting sustainable water management. New landscaping in the park provides multiple benefits. As well as flood and temperature mitigation, there's a more attractive environment and a network of footpaths. Over 40 trees were planted in the park by a local community group. 30 more trees were planted in 2 nearby streets to reduce heat stress. 11 of these trees are in special pits which collect and filtrate heavy rainwater. The trees are a mixture of maples and maidenhair trees selected for their canopy size to generate shade, their ability to withstand drought and heavy rainfall, as well as being good for biodiversity and improving air quality. So now we have an attractive leisure space for residents, flood alleviation, improved biodiversity and air quality, and reduced heat stress. Multiple benefits again. Max Tant led for KCC on this project, working with many partners. Well done to all of you. Last year, I went through all 10 priorities of the Kenton Medway Energy and Low Emissions Strategy. I don't intend to do this again, but you'll find the strategy on the KCC website, and you'll also find a progress report. I'm truly delighted at the progress that's been made, and also the goodwill and willingness to help from so many partners. When KCC committed to reduce our carbon emissions to net zero by 2030, we did so after commissioning work from our energy subsidiary, Laser. Laser estimated that whilst challenging, we could reach our target with investment of around 27 million by 2030, and that this investment would bring returns of 96 million by 2050. This time last year, we had none of that funding in place. But by March 2021, we had won 20.6 million funding from the government's public sector decarbonisation scheme, as well as a further 1.2 million for schools in Kent. Other Kent councils that won funding were Dartford Borough Council, who were awarded 1.3 million, and Dover District Council, who won 1.9 million. These grants will enable us to move rapidly towards our net zero goal. In KCC's case, they will reduce our carbon emissions by a further 40% by March 2022, as well as reduce energy costs, support green jobs here in Kent, and produce an income stream for the council. Multiple benefits yet again. Our projects include 2 solar parks, more solar panels on the roofs of our buildings to add to the 1,300 we've already installed, air and ground source heat pumps, better insulation, and yes, more LED lights. And these are just the sort of projects everyone can do, from individual households to businesses, public sector and charities. What's more, we're helping them do so. KCC runs low carbon across the south and east, low case, and our low case team help businesses reduce their energy costs and carbon emissions, and to expand into new opportunities in low carbon goods and services. It also matches businesses with waste with businesses that can use this waste as their raw material. Handbags from old wetsuits is one of my favorite examples. The programme has recently been expanded to cover a wider part of the southeast, and we have £14 million worth of grants to distribute. Lowcase won a national award in May and another in October. We can be proud of the work of Rob Robinson and his Lowcase team. Then there's our Kent Revs scheme, which is a joint project between KCC and National Highways. KCC is providing the running costs, and National Highways provided the capital for a fleet of electric vans, which we're lending free of charge to businesses to trial. Over 100 businesses across the county have already trialled an electric van. I'm particularly proud of the work of Deborah Kapai and colleagues at Commercial Services in getting this scheme launched during the pandemic, and we've 2 of the Kent Rev vans here today. We're helping Kent householders as well with our Solar Together scheme. Working with Medway Council and 9 district councils, we've used our collective buying power to get a reduced price for solar panels and battery storage. I was one of 450 households taking advantage of this scheme earlier this year. With learning from this first round, we hope to run a further round of Solar Together next spring, and we're looking to do the same for ground and air source heat pumps. These schemes are great, and the capital cost is paid back through cheaper running costs. But what about those who can't afford the upfront costs? Fuel poverty is a real issue, and even with subsidies, the upfront cost of solar panels, air and ground source heat pumps, it's a barrier for far too many people. I've heard Laura Sands speak on this before, and I believe she is right when she calls for the balance of risk to be moved from the consumer to the supplier. We need a system where the energy supplier is responsible for delivery, not leave the consumer to deal with failures and replacements. Energy as a service should mean just that. Your energy supplier provides the equipment and maintains this and should get no income unless they do. This way, they have every incentive to provide the most efficient heating system, keep it well maintained, and respond swiftly when it goes wrong. Getting to net zero is about changing how we produce and consume energy, and energy as a service will be part of the solution. Transport is just as much of a challenge and the greatest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Kent. You'll hear more about our district and borough-wide EV charger project later. Tim Middleton and colleagues have done a great job in bringing together the public and private sectors in a partnership for the benefit of Kent residents. The sites are provided by the councils, with Connected Curb providing the charging points and sharing the revenue. 150 locations have been identified and 600 charging points is our target to install over the next 2 years, adding to an ever-growing Kent-wide network. KCC is also leading an active travel behaviour change programme to reduce the dependence on vehicles. And here comes the other benefit, improve our health. One example of this work is our e-cycle scheme to buy electric cycles. Another key area is household waste. KCC sends less than 1% of Kent's waste to landfill, with what can't be recycled turned into energy. We've also been working to keep Kent's waste here in the county. Paper and card is pulped in North Kent. Food waste goes to Blaze Farm to be turned into biogas and fertiliser. Even street sweepings are washed and reused after being processed in East Kent. Working with Kent's districts and boroughs, we need to do more to help Kent's residents reduce, reuse and recycle their waste. And I'm expecting great things from Sally Ward, who is the new Kent Resource Partnership Manager. I couldn't talk about our work on the environment without mentioning the truly wonderful Plan B. Plan B is led by my KCC colleague and today's chairman, Sean Holden, and it's been changing the way KCC manages its own land to promote pollinators. Kent's Plan B has captured the imagination of Kent's residents, with hundreds following its Facebook page. As a result of Plan B, KCC is now to change how and when we cut our highway verge. Bus shelters with sedum roofs. As well as Plan B, we now have Plan Tree, which is about delivering our ambition for an additional 1 million trees planted in Kent. That's one for every resident. We also intend to meet the government's target of 19% tree cover in the county by 2050. In the last 2 years, we've planted over 112,000 trees ourselves, and we know there is tremendous enthusiasm among our residents to plant more trees. Trees are just one part of natural climate solutions which Liz Milne and her team deliver. Trees, hedges, salt marshes and grasslands all contribute to our environment. They store carbon, improve resilience to flood and drought, improve air quality and increase biodiversity. They also provide places we humans enjoy. We'll be hearing more about the value of nature from Evan Byrne-Jones of Kent Wildlife Trust. I hope it's clear from what I've been saying that whilst the challenge is great, we've been making real progress. Above all, I want to say, I'm not doing this on my own. We need everyone to help, and that means not just organisations, but also individuals. I believe that innovation, technology, and market forces will help us reach our goal. So too will the efforts of everyone at this conference, both in person and online. I'd like to ask you to all play your part. Please keep in touch with your climate action successes and progress so that we can celebrate it and follow Kent Green Action on Facebook and Twitter. Let's share ideas and what works. Let's create the optimism and enthusiasm we need to achieve our goal, because all the projects we're engaged in will improve life for us